The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
You are now listening to the Allen and DJ Show on 103.5 FM WLSP-LP, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. We're here to talk about self-improvement, lifestyle, and becoming the very best version of yourself.
You're now listening to the Allen and DJ Show.
Yo, 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 Milwaukee, Sun Prairie, and all the surrounding areas, man. Y'all know what time this is. Welcome to the Allen and DJ Show. And of course, I'm Al.
And this is your boy DJ.
DJ, man, what's going on, man?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Oh, man, I'm cooling, man. Now, what's going on with you, William J. Smith? What's going on, my dirty?
It's all right.
Okay. Yeah, well, William, like you swinging on the mics, okay? I'm like, it's going all right. I'm like, all right, well, look, I see you. But, you know, I'm going to laugh out there. But today I want to take this conversation today on a more serious topic because, you know, me and Bambi the deer was talking. And I said, my Bambi, when I take you into the woods and, you know, we go to our little spots we hang out at, you're not drinking. You're not drinking while, you know, how can I say this? Conceiving a child. We're not going to have that. So she told me about her story in the past when she had the other deers that she used to mess with. And, you know, she was drinking and, you know, she was pregnant and smoking. And I said, yo, like, that's not good. And before we get the show started, I want to put a disclaimer out there. We're not judging nobody or no one. You know, like, you have free will and you're free to do whatever you want to do. But we want to talk about today going into the realm of drinking and smoking and even for fellas too, how this affect us.
Yeah.
How this could like affect you know, like the fetus of your child, you know, the pregnancy and the 10 possible consequences of facing this, you know. So we're only going to bring it to you the way that the Allen and DJ Show know how to bring it to you. So let's start with bullet point number 1, DJ.
Oh, yeah.
Increased risk of miscarriage.
Oh, yeah. Usually when this happens, basically miscarriages typically occur in the first 3 months of pregnancy. And on rare occasions, sometimes they can actually occur within 20 weeks of the pregnancy, which is called a stillbirth.
Yeah.
But this can also affect the male too, because like if he go through the miscarriage, when he goes through the miscarriage, like that can emotionally take a toll on him as well.
Yeah, big time. And you know, when you smoking and using alcohol during the pregnancy, it can increase your risk of having a miscarriage, especially in the earlier stages. But also too, a lot of people don't talk about this, like. And so I want to talk about something that leads up before that stage. And that comes from having high cortisol. And what does high cortisol come from? Stress. So she might be under stress that, you know, this might be her first pregnancy. She might be under stress that, you know, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this child. She might be under stress because she don't know what type of man you might be. Because you be showing signs of you just being a jerk, right? And he might be stressing her out as well. You know, he might be just... You know, you're picking fights for her because you really don't want to have the baby and X, Y, and Z. And then that can cause her to start drinking and smoking. And she might not have that right person in their ear to say, hey, mama, look, you shouldn't be doing that, right? So then that causes her to have a miscarriage. And I'm going to say, like, drinking and smoking is probably about a good 20-25% of it. But 60 to 75% of it comes from stress.
Absolutely. And according to the CDC, like basically smoking increases stillbirth, which is from the actual like cigarettes, the chemicals that are actually in the cigarettes.
Yeah.
And basically it also resorts to like other complications like the placenta and like slow fetal development.
Big time. So, you know, that's why and I say this like verbatimly, but you know, like sometimes like your chick have so let's say like on the kid make it through. I mean, drinking and smoking and all that, but he make it through.
Mm-hmm.
They can have a growing defect. So it's why people might say, or maybe know it as being like a midget, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like they might have a growing effect because of what the parents did, you know, and sometimes it can be genetics. So let me not take it all the way there, but sometimes, you know, it could be because of the chemicals that, you know what I'm saying, like the mother is consuming in her body. So, you know, you most definitely want to watch out for stuff like that. And bullet point number 2, premature birth.
Oh yeah, this is crazy because this happens all the time too.
Yeah. Oh, this is way common.
Yeah, it really is. Like, but according to the CDC again, smoking during pregnancy has came to the cause of basically premature birth. Like, but that's basically to give y'all a brief definition, that's when the baby is born too early.
Yeah. So smoking and having an alcohol consumption could lead to premature birth, which means that the baby could be born even before 37 weeks before its due date.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like the baby is like, you know, smaller than what it should be, right? And the baby might not be technically like breathing right on his own. So, you know, like they have to kind of like keep the baby, let's say in the hospital, extra longer. They kind of like monitor the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes, you know, it can come from twins. You know, like maybe one twin was eating more food than the other twin. Because that can happen, you know.
Absolutely.
But when you drinking and smoking, it could really affect, like, oh, wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, the baby is, like, not doing well. Sometimes, like, the baby sometimes doesn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, it was too premature. So when you going through a pregnancy, and the guy should be there to help, like, make the situation go smooth. Yeah, you know, you're not going to have good days, but, you know, you most definitely don't want to stress her out, and you most definitely want to watch her alcohol intake and smoking. If anything, you're not going to be smoking or drinking, having my baby at all. I'm not playing that.
Nope. No, but risk factors also associated with premature birth is visual and hearing impairments.
Yeah.
Mental disabilities, learning and behavioral problems, and in extreme cases, death.
Big time, man. You know, I remember, you know what I'm saying, like dealing with, you know what I'm saying, certain friends that I knew, and, you know, they lost their baby premature. And I know enough for being a heavy smoker and drinker, you know, and, you know, you can only hope the best for somebody, but it's like you lead them to the water, but you can't make them drink. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she kind of cleaned up her act after that, because once that happened, she was like, whoa. And she was like, you know, moving forward, the next child I have, I don't never want to experience this pain again. And that's tough, man. You know, you know, and that's tough for people who had a baby and you know, it didn't make it through. Trust me. Like, my heart go out to you, because, you know, that's something serious. Like, my mom, before my oldest sister was born, I was supposed to have another older sister, and she didn't make it.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I know she one of my angels watching me too. So, you know, like this subject was really touchy for me. And going into bullet point number 3, low birth rate.
Oh yeah, this is random too, because what happens is, like, the baby doesn't come out the way that it's supposed to come out.
Yeah.
As far as like weight wise, because babies have to be a certain weight in order for them to
exactly
to be birthed. But this condition can also result in, like, basically developmental delays, cerebral palsy, hearing and visual ailments, and also death in extreme cases again.
Yeah, and like DJ, you're actually right. You know, like, because they more likely to have like a low birth weight, which can increase in big major health problems. You know, they can have a heart arrhythmia, where like the heart is not beating in rhythm like it should. Mm-hmm. You know, eventually it can have behavior problems, or
Absolutely.
let's go beyond smoking and drinking. Let's say if the parents was taking drugs,
Yeah.
you might have to get a baby Ritalin.
Yeah.
Because it's so addicted. So that baby is, and it's crying and going crazy, right? Because and like most cases during like the early 80s going into the early 90s, like when the crack how can I say this? Like when the crack era was out really bad, like a lot of babies needed Ritalin.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, like it's a such thing as that. And, you know, babies have to be monitored as they born. If they really come out too premature, and they can have like major like health problems. And it could be something that could affect a like mental disability, learning disability. It could affect like major health problems. Like
Absolutely.
some could be disabled.
Yep.
So, you know, like you want to most definitely think twice before when you know that you're about to conceive into this world and have a baby, or you're thinking about having a baby. You know, you want to sit down with your significant other and talk about how can I manage this if this is something that you love to do, because can nobody stop you from doing this?
Absolutely.
But, you know, let's try to practice safer ways of doing that.
And like according to the American Cancer Society, basically women who quit smoking before or during pregnancy lower the risk of having low birth weight.
Exactly, because, you know, I'm real big on if you notice that if you know that this is something that you can't give up, don't try to jump into that lane right away. You know, like make sure, like, okay, look, you know what? If this is something that I'm gonna do, I have to be all in, because it's not fair to this child that's coming into the world. They didn't ask for that. So, you know, like that's something to really watch out for. And even when it comes to bullet point number 4, birth defects.
Oh man.
You know, because drinking and smoking can cause birth defects. Like
Absolutely.
alcohol consumption during pre-pregnancy can increase the risk of birth defects such as cleft lip, cleft plate, heart defects. The baby might need a heart plate. You know what I'm saying? Because it's been affected.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like that's something that is like very serious that you have to watch out for.
And also with birth defects, like the most common types of congenital heart defects and problems with also have problems with the structure of the heart, meaning like one of your ventricles in your heart, or one of your or I should say, like in a term of that people understand, like one of your heart chambers actually is struggling to pump out blood.
Yep. So, which causing like that. So, like that baby might even, well, like most studies show, like 65% of the babies might not even make it till they get 20, because their heart is struggling to pump blood. Either A, they want to put a stent in that heart, but you can't really do it too much while they have baby. You know what I mean? Because like the body not fully developed. So it's meaning that it's a very high risk that baby not gonna make it. It could die. Absolutely. Because it's not having enough blood to pump to the brain, and like, you know, it's not giving the brain oxygen, and then also too, like how can the blood, you know what I'm saying, flow through the legs or anything like that, which it can cause like a blocked artery. Yeah. So, you know, that's something that you just want to watch out for when it comes to drinking and smoking. And also bullet point 5, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASD. Yeah. So DJ, break that down, man. How does this tie into the effects of smoking and drinking while being pregnant?
Oh, basically, like when this happens, basically the risk factors can include neurological problems, behavioral problems, but they show up later on in life, in their childhood. Basically, like it don't show up right away when they're born, but it will show up at some point in their childhood.
Definitely.
But certain abnormal facial features can appear, like they could have like a bigger nose than they supposed to have, or one eye is higher than the other eye type deal. And or they can be missing like a crease between like their nose and their lips, like type deal. Or sometimes they can have cognitive difficulties, or sometimes even skeletal deformities.
Exactly. And then also too, like if they twins, like you ever seen twins that were stuck together? Yeah. You know? So like that's true too. And when it comes to FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, alcohol consumption during pregnancy can cause FASD, which is a group of lifelong disabilities. It could affect the brain, the behavior of the child, and it can also affect the growth of a child, because now that child might not grow past, let's say, 3'9". So, like, that comes from, not all the time, the majority of the time, from smoking and drinking, especially if you're drinking and smoking heavily. Then that's why, like, the child is like, hey, like, look, I don't know what's going on with your kid. He constantly disrupts the class. He has a very bad, like, behavior problem, which is like that maybe at school, like, we all have these coming up where, like, they have, like, a certain area for kids who have, like, disabilities.
Absolutely.
Or, a kid who has, like, very bad behavior problems have to go into a certain type of a classroom where they can be tend to, like, way more better.
Absolutely. But also the crazy thing about this is that, like, it can cause brain damage to the child as well.
Yeah.
Which can, like, alternate a lot of their functions, like, especially, like, when it comes down to, like, with babies, when they have to use, like, their brain is programmed to, like, use a certain part of their brain to, like, breathe and to wake up, that can alternate that. Or if it's not fully developed, it can alternate the baby's patterns of breathing.
There's like a kid that I know, he had very bad behavior problems. I think he's only 3 years old, and he rip and run. His energy has, like, no bounds, and he bangs his head because he don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He can't even barely even talk.
Yeah.
And then he kind of go like this. He reach for stuff. So, when I was doing this show, and I was like, can I ask you some personal questions? And I'm not giving her name away, but she said she did a lot of, hardcore drugs, and drinking and smoking was another one of them. And that would make her child come out to be the way that it was. And she said, I'm still going to love him like he's one of my own, but that's something that I will never do again in the future. So, just watch out for stuff like that. And
Absolutely.
then bullet point 6, sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. So, DJ, break that down for us, man. Like, how does that tie into the effects of dealing with drinking and alcohol while being pregnant?
Because if somebody doesn't control or stop their drinking and smoking, like, this is basically like an unexplained way of death of the baby.
Yeah.
Basically meaning, like, your baby just one day just gonna die, and that can be the actual cause of it. But at the same time, like, you're not gonna know that it's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen. So basically, like, in this situation, like, the baby only is around for basically, when it goes through these types of symptoms, they're only around for a year.
Exactly.
So basically, within 1 month to a year, they could be developing these complications, and all of a sudden, one day, they could be asleep, and all of a sudden, they're dead. And that's how they pretty much die.
That's true, man. That's sad too, man. Like, dealing with sudden infant death syndrome, like, it's sad because smoking during the pregnancy could increase the risk. It could increase the risk of this big time. And sometimes, like, the unexpected death just happens. And like DJ said, it's true, because it can happen to an infant between the ages of 2 months to a year. So at some point within that gap, your baby finna die. Like, how can you live like that?
Nope.
That's challenging them as a parent. So
Yeah.
I can't tell nobody what to do, and the same thing for the guys as well. You gotta hold the guys accountable too. Like, not only you have to watch yourself, but you have to watch her as well. Like, you have to be a good example for her. You have to monitor what goes into her body. Make sure that you're taking the proper vitamins that you need and eating the proper nutrients when it comes to certain foods, because if you go down that lane, then that's what you're gonna get.
Absolutely.
And also bullet point number 7, placement problems. So when it comes to smoking and drinking, DJ, how does this affect the pregnancy? Like, when it comes to drinking and smoking.
When it comes down to this, like, basically, like, you can have an eruption in the female's uterus, meaning that the The definition of it is it's a condition in which the placenta separates from the urethra, and I mean uterus. The placenta is basically like a barrier for the baby in order for him to get nutrients and vitamins and stuff like that, so it can grow into a healthy baby. But that can separate, and when it separates, it basically causes bleeding and threatens the life of the mom and the baby.
Yeah. Oh, that's something serious, man, because, you know, drinking and smoking and, you know, when it comes to just alcohol consumption in general, it can damage the placenta, like DJ said, which is true, but it also can damage the organs, which provides the oxygen for the nutrients to the baby. So if you're constantly doing this, constantly drinking, you're constantly just smoking, let's say now at this point you're just a heavy smoker, you're damaging, like, not only yourself, but you're damaging the organs of the baby. And then, like, once that placenta is messed up, now it's not getting the proper nutrients that it needs. So when the baby come out, it can come out too skinny, too small.
Yep.
Or like, hey, like this baby got to go on life support right away. Like, it's not going to make it.
Yep.
So, you know, those are certain just like, you know what I'm saying, risk problems that you can face while dealing with being pregnant.
And also with it can also result to like placenta previa. And let me give y'all a definition of that. And placenta previa is when the placenta stays on the lower part of the uterus that covers the cervix, because the cervix is what needs to open up in order for the baby to come out. And basically what happens is, like, when the actual placenta is built, like, it's always built on the upper half of the uterus. And so the baby so when it breaks and the water breaks, the baby is able to slide right out. But if it's built on the lower half, it cuts off the cervix.
Yeah. And, you know,
which can block the pregnancy, basically.
Man, for real. But it's crazy because, like, I knew many people who went through this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's sad, man, but you know, I mean, that just comes with it when you drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
And also, bullet point 8, you know what I'm saying, let's talk about growth retardation.
Oh, yeah.
Because when it comes to babies being exposed to smoking and drinking alcohol, DJ, it may slow down their growth rate, development, like their development to process information.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
like, you ever know kids that just be like, I just don't get it.
Yep.
And, you know, like, you might have some parents, look here, sit down. 3 + 3 is what? They just really don't get it.
No, they don't.
So, like, they have to go into a slower class where they can have that proper education, where they can, how can I say this, seduce down to their level. They're just like with reading. They might not be as equipped as reading as quickly as the other kids, as far as, like, on a learning, on, like, maybe, like, on a certain, like, learning level. So, let's say I'm in the 4th grade, but I'm reading on the 5th grade reading level. You might be in the 4th grade, but you're reading on the 2nd or 1st grade reading level. And that comes to, you know, maybe somewhere down the line when your mom was pregnant with you, she did a lot of drinking, smoking, and maybe some hardcore drugs on top of that.
Absolutely. And let me give people a definition, just in case if they don't understand what we're talking about. Basically, growth retardation is basically a condition where the individual, particularly a child or a fetus, does not grow at an expected rate.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and the factors that is included in that is basically growth hormone deficiencies or thyroidism.
Yeah.
Or hyperthyroidism, sorry.
Which can turn into cancerous.
Absolutely.
Know? So that's something that, you know, you guys really want to be mindful of, you know. And nobody's not trying to tell you what to do, or, you know, we're not throwing shade on nobody. You know, we're just saying, you know, like, if you're going to do these things, kind of like do it in moderation. Don't just do this every day. I encourage you not to do it at all, but at least during the pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Bullet point 9, this can increase the risk for chronic disease.
Oh, yeah.
And when a child is born to his mothers who smokes and drink alcohol during the pregnancy, may increase the risks of chronic disease, like later in life, such as heart disease, cancer, or even strokes, or maybe it's worse as death.
Absolutely. And basically, also, when it comes down to increased risk of chronic disease. Like basically, smoking has been directly linked to like cardiovascular diseases like stroke,
Yep.
other types of stroke like hemorrhages, strokes, and like also congestion, heart failures,
Yep.
which is and also like bleeding in the brain and narrowing of the arteries as well.
Man, that's true, man. And me seeing these things before, man, like even with my sister being a nurse, and sometimes like, you go shadow her at her job and the things that you see, and you be like, wow, and the things that you learn, like when I did the show today, like I wanted to get around a nurse to make sure that, we knew our proper education as far as like educating the masses on this what can happen when you drink and smoke. And like I'm making increase the kid just like not growing at a expected way that it should. So instead of your child coming out at 8 pounds, maybe 10 ounces or whatever the case may be, your child come out at 4 pounds. So it's already underweight. That's premature, right? Mm-hmm. Now it has the risk for heart, disease, like because maybe the hardcore drugs that you're doing besides drinking and smoking. And like the baby can just have a stroke right then and there. Or they're like, hey, you ever had the doctor come in the room and say, hey, I'm sorry, but the baby didn't make it. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, a silent killer, stress.
Yeah.
People don't realize that, man. Stress can cause all this stuff too. That's why I say, like, when you pregnant, man, she already going to have emotions up and down anywhere. Emotions going to be all over the place. So your job as the man is to try to make this transition for her easy as possible. Like, I've seen girls that get pregnant, bro, and they be like 7 months, and they be like, I'm just fat and ugly. I don't look good. And you got to constantly keep telling her, baby, look, you look good. You look fine to me. You know what I'm saying?
Constant validation.
Man, like, you got to constantly keep validating her because she's already at that stage where she might, feel like, dang, I'm about to look like a big swollen balloon. And you like, baby, look, you look good. Like, so our child going to be healthy. X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff to watch out for. And cleft plate, which is bullet point 10. DJ, break that down for the masses and drive us home with this one, bro.
All right, basically, like what a cleft palate is basically a split in the roof of the baby's mouth, and it can also result to basically cleft lip, meaning like you can have a split between the roof of your mouth and your lip, to where like you see like a gap in between your lip all the way up to your nose, basically. And like women that smoke during pregnancy are at 50 to 78% more likely to give birth to a baby with a cleft lip or a palate.
For real. DJ, you couldn't have said that like no more better. Yeah, like and because smoking and drinking during pregnancy can increases the risks of that, and even a birth defect and effects of not just the lip and the roof of the mouth, but like I done seen like babies like where you watch on certain channels where like it's like something like in the neck right here, and it's just like I don't know what kind of disease that can be per se. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but
might be thyroid.
Yeah. So, like, it could be thyroid, right? Mm-hmm. But all that comes into effect of what? You know what I'm saying? The common denominator is drinking and smoking. Mm-hmm. And then, Lord forbid, don't let them be doing hardcore drugs on top of that.
Absolutely.
So, I'm going to just say this, man. Like, nobody's telling you guys what to do. If you're going to drink, just drink responsibly. If you're going to smoke, I encourage you not to do it. But if you're going to smoke, don't smoke as much. And please don't do no hardcore drugs. Try to make sure you get, take your proper vitamins and give the baby the proper nutrients that it needs. Which is take us into the Alan and DJ's final thought. DJ, what's your final thought when it comes to the effects of someone smoking while being pregnant?
Like basically, we gave you all the effects of basically drinking and smoking and what it'll cause when the baby is born. But the men, if you're still in the lady's life or whatever, like you should be able to like hold yourself accountable and hold them accountable and make sure like you take away like any access or even set a better example for them to where like they don't do that.
Exactly. And my final thought is, fellas, we gotta be more stronger. Yeah, okay, she gonna be pregnant. She gonna be emotional. Yeah, she might want to fight you. All kind of stuff. Hey, you know what? You can hit me as hard as you can. I'm not letting you smoke or drink around my baby, or while you having my baby. And fellas, though, we gotta practice mindfulness ourselves, like, cause she could be healthy as a mud, but if you drinking and you smoking and you taking hardcore drugs, it could affect your swimmers, and that baby could still come out having a problem. So, you know, we gotta hold ourselves accountable as well. And once we do what we need to do to make sure that the baby come out healthy, taking the proper vitamins and the proper nutrients that it needs to get, then you and your baby just became the very best version of yourself. Now, this is the Alan and DJ Show. You can find us on YouTube at the Alan and DJ Show. Like, comment, and subscribe, please. It's not gonna hurt you. You can find us at the Alan and DJ fan page on Facebook. And you also find us at the Alan and DJ Show at gmail.com if you have any questions about what you want us to talk about or hear from next. And then also you can find my personal page, Alan Hutchinson, on Instagram and Facebook, and William J. Smith on Instagram and Facebook. And until next time, don't let smoking and drinking affect the baby while being pregnant. If anything, you affect the pregnancy by being healthy. Because you know why? We want to stay well, stay healthy.
Peace.
You already know.